It has been a while since I've made a video, and it being the holidays, I've decided to do something a little new and different. Today I am going to look back at the NBA predictions I made right before the season. How the league is really shaping out is a little bit different than how I thought it would at the beginning of the year. I am going to start in the Eastern Conference, because that is the conference I usually watch the most of, being on the East Coast. In first place in the Eastern Conference are the Milwaukee Bucks with a record of 27-5. I thought that the Bucks would be the best team in the East at the beginning of the year, but they are doing way better than I predicted. The Bucks are on pace to win over 70 games. 71 to be exact. That would give them the third best record in NBA history. So I was a little bit right, a little bit wrong when it came to the Milwaukee Bucks. I thought Giannis Antetokounmpo would have another good year and go off, which he is. He's having another career year. But I did not expect the rest of the team to step up like they have so far. If the rest of the team can continue this production, then this will be a finals team. Just for reference, these records were taken before the Lakers and Clippers played on Christmas Day. So in second place for the Eastern Conference is the Boston Celtics. If you haven't already, you should watch my original video about the NBA 2019-2020 season predictions. In it, I did choose the Boston Celtics as the second best team in the Eastern Conference. For the record, I am a Celtics fan, and when I was making the video, I kind of felt like my fanboy ranked the Celtics higher than they should have been, seeing as they just lost Kyrie Irving and Al Horford. They lost Terry Rozier, who was a big part of their bench. Boston-based sports news didn't know who they'd start for center. But I sort of felt like this was a team a couple years ago when Kyrie went down with a point guard who is similar to Kyrie, but doesn't demand a lot of ball possession. And the Celtics are doing even better than my most optimistic predictions. And with Toronto being the only 500 or above team they play in like the next 10 games, the Celtics could be 1 or 2 games back of the Bucks for the first seed in the East going into the NBA All-Star Weekend. Next, we have the Miami Heat with a 22-8 record. This is the first difference between my prediction and reality, where I predicted Miami would finish 6th, and I believe people were underestimating the Heat. They have defied everybody's expectations so far, and have soared to 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. In 4th place in the Eastern Conference, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. This is where I thought they would be. One thing I did not think would happen with Philadelphia is how bad they're shooting. They have no 3-point shooters so far this year. Well, last year they had Jimmy Butler for at least half the year, and that helped them with the perimeter shooting. And they also had J.J. Redick, another undervalued player in this league. This year, no one has really stepped up for them shooting. The whole thing about Ben Simmons shooting threes never hyped me up, mostly because the problem wasn't if he could make the shots, it was he wasn't even taking threes. And that has continued to be a theme this year. He has only taken 5 3-point shot attempts so far this year. Sure, this is better as last year he only took 6 3-point shots a total year, and in his rookie year he took 11 the whole year. But from the videos we saw in the off-season, it seemed at the very least, the lowest percentile prediction for how he was shooting was around like 50 3-point attempts on the season. Not maybe 15. Sure, his outside shooting might be getting better, but I can't make that determination because he is still not shooting the shots. Other than that, I thought Tobias Harris would step up to Jimmy Butler's role. He was going to become the perimeter shooter that they needed once Jimmy Butler left for the Heat. But he has not done that. Next, the Pacers are in 5th with a record of 21-10. This team has done really well without Victor Oladipo, and Malcolm Brogdon has stepped up into that role that he had last year, that being Oladipo. Next are the Raptors, also with a 21-10 record. Granted, this is after a loss that put them behind the Pacers into 6th place, instead of being in 5th place, like they were yesterday, and when everyone woke up for Christmas. They still lost with injuries, but those happen in the season, so they can't blame the loss on the injuries. They have to battle through them. But I thought this team would be doing better this year. Even though they lost Kawhi, I still thought this was one of the best teams in the East. Not that they're doing awful, but if the playoffs were to start today, the Raptors would not be hosting a playoff series. They would not have home field advantage. In a 7-game series, they would have to play on the road 4 times. This is a good team, but I don't think they could win 4 games on the road in a playoff series. In 7th is the Brooklyn Nets with a 16-13 record. This team is doing better than I expected them to do this year. I thought this team would be just out of the playoffs, but at this moment, they are in the playoffs by 5 games. In 8th place is Orlando Magic with a 13-17 record. It looks like in the East, the last playoff seed will not be that great of a team, meaning more of an advantage to the team that can secure the first seed in the East. Teams that are not in the playoff spot right now, my opinions on them has not changed much. The only notable one to talk about in the East is the Detroit Pistons. They have completely underperformed from the standards I set during my NBA predictions. But other than that, my thoughts from my prediction video more or less explain how I feel about these 7 teams. Now, out west is a little bit different, very different than what I predicted. In first place is the Los Angeles Lakers with a record of 24-6. Now, during my NBA predictions video, I didn't even have the Lakers as a playoff team, because after LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the rest of the team is very mediocre. Kuzma will be a good player, but he is young. He still needs a lot of experience, and every other player is mediocre at best. I guess I forgot that the league's a joke, and the difference between the good teams and bad teams is enormous. Therefore, if you only have 1 superstar, you can be an average team, but with 2, you're magically the best team in the league. That being said, if one of these players gets injured, it doesn't matter which one it is, either James or Davis, their season is over. In second place in the Western Conference is the Denver Nuggets. This is a team that is playing really good of late, Hopefully they can overtake the Lakers for the first seed. In third place right now is the Los Angeles Clippers. Remember, this is before the conclusion of the Clippers-Lakers game. So the Rockets could jump the Clippers if they lose. If the Clippers win, they keep the third spot. This is a good team. They are still trying to get Paul George totally healthy. And Doc Rivers has a coaching philosophy, one I don't agree with. But for some games, he has been sitting out Kawhi Leonard. So they have been sacrificing some regular season success to try and build for the playoffs and make sure everyone is healthy and fresh when they start. Then the fourth place team, which may move up to third place, is the Houston Rockets. The Rockets just had a heartbreaking loss to the Golden State Warriors, who are now injury prone and barely have a team. But this seems pretty standard for what the Rockets team is. I feel this is a team with Westbrook and Harden that plays to their competition, meaning they will get fired up for games against really good teams and give them a really good game and can beat those really good teams. But they will overlook bad teams and let those teams stay in games where they can lose to a team they should definitely beat. In fifth place is the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this is a team that was not on my radar to start the year. But Luka Doncic has made tremendous progression to start his sophomore year. And Porzingis has played great when Doncic has been injured. And Porzingis is starting to look like his old self. If that happens, this will be a scary team to play in the playoffs. Next is the Utah Jazz. I thought that the Conley trade and his addition would help a lot more than it has so far this year. Even though Conley has missed games this year due to injury, I still thought that this Utah Jazz team could play better. I did also think that Donovan Mitchell would have a breakout year. And he is. Donovan Mitchell is having a slight breakout year. He is averaging slightly over his career averages in points, assists, and rebounds. It seems like he is steadily improving, but I expected that this year the improvement would have been more. In seventh place is the Oklahoma City Thunder with a 15-14 record. This is another team I didn't think would have a very good year. I mean, this is a good but not great team. They have no shot at winning an NBA Finals with this team. So I honestly think it is their best interest to blow up the team, trade the veterans on the team, like Garnari, to try and get draft picks that they can use for the future so they can build an NBA Finals team. In eighth place is the Portland Trail Blazers with a record of 14-17. Both 8 seeds are under 500 right now. The Trailblazers are my biggest disappointment so far this year. This team had so much potential to have a good year, but are barely hanging on to a playoff spot at the moment. Then for these teams that are not in playoff spots right now, the only one to talk about is the 8-24 Warriors. I predicted them to be a playoff team, but then they lost their star player who would have brought a low-level playoff seed. and they have completely fell apart since then. I will also give a shout out to the Phoenix Suns, who have done better than probably what everyone expected of them. Maybe I viewed them so poorly, but I definitely did not expect them to be this good. Then again, this good is still 11-19, and the 11th seed in the Western Conference. So take that for what it's worth. Now, one of the hardest things to predict, what I expected the awards would be at the end of the season. Let's start with MVP. I was completely wrong about Jokic. He is only averaging around 17 points, exactly 10 rebounds, and almost 7 assists per game. The assists per game is very impressive for a center, but all this was predicated on the idea that the Nuggets would have the best record in the league. Even if they did, Jokic's stats are nowhere near what an MVP should be. Who I am giving the MVP to so far this year is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis has increased his averages of points and rebounds so far this year from last year, which was already a career high. And Antetokounmpo pretty much ran away with the MVP last year. So if his numbers are better than last year's, and he won last year, how can you not give him the award again? And it seems that the NBA's fears are about to become a reality. Giannis is starting to become a better perimeter shooter. He doesn't need to be a great shooter, or even a good shooter. If he can just become an average shooter, he will be unstoppable in the NBA. Now, as for Rookie of the Year, as everyone thought it would be at the start of the year, I said it was Zion Williamson. When I first made this prediction, the announcement that he had a torn meniscus had not been released yet. I am pretty sure at the time I knew he had a knee injury, but I was not sure how severe his injury was. My calculations put his NBA debut somewhere around the middle of January. So they are not going to give the award to someone who missed half the year. Right now, the award probably has to go to Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. He has played very well for them, and he shows that there will be a bright future in Memphis. For Defensive Player of the Year, I thought it would be Rudy Gobert. Now, after halfway through the year, I feel that this will be a very close race for Defensive Player of the Year between Gobert and Andre Drummond. And right now, I have to give it to Drummond. Drummond is averaging 2 steals and 1.7 blocks per game. I know that stats don't really show how good a player is defensively, but I feel like the stats is what the voters for defensive player usually rely on to tell if a player is good at defense or not. And based on stats, Drummond is playing better defense than Gobert. For most improved, I thought it was going to be Jaylen Brown. Now, this is still probably one of the hardest things to determine, even at the midpoint of the season. Pretty much, it's hard to say who the most improved player is, or who a group of journalists think the most improved player is. Because really, that is where all the awards come from. NBA journalists from across the nation will get a survey and they get to decide who they feel is like MVP, most improved, and the all NBA teams and everything like that. Other than Brown, you can make a case that Pascal Siakam deserves the award again, or that Devontae Graham deserves the award, who was basically a G League player last year. Last, I have sixth man, and I really don't know how you could give it to anyone other than Lou Williams at this point. They have to select 3 finalists, but they should all be Lou Williams. Now that I've finished that, I want to predict some potential big names that I think will get traded before the end of the season. I will start off with CJ McCollum. I think that he's just not working out in Portland. Next, with the rise of Andrew Wiggins, and the team still not going anywhere, I feel this is when they'll decide to trade him. Now some players that should have probably already been traded: Drummond, Kevin Love, or pretty much any veteran big who is on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Bradley Beal should have already been traded. And I will throw this in here. I think the Warriors will stay put, but they don't really need Russell when everyone is healthy next year. So I think if someone offers them a first-round pick for this year, the Warriors will be willing to trade Russell. And I am back from my break. Be prepared to see more videos soon.